is the new 2026 Dodge Charger Sixpack, and it doesn't suck. Most people hate the new Charger because, well, they killed off the old one that everyone loved, and it started as only an electric car, and there's no four-door version, but they're fixing all of that stuff, starting with a gas engine in this car. And today I'm going to review the new gas-powered Dodge Charger and show you all of its quirks and features. Before we get started, are you ready for your next cool car? Sell your enthusiast car on Cars and Bids. Trading in your car to dealers means you aren't getting market value for your car, leaving you with less cash for your next fun car. Just look at our recent sales of these cool cars compared to current trade-in value. This is a trade-in offer, and this was the Cars and Bids result. This is a trade-in offer, and this was the Cars and Bids result. This is the trade-in offer, and this is the Cars and Bids result. Get started now on carsandbids.com. Sell on Cars and Bids and join the best community to sell your enthusiast car. All right, time for the quirks and features of the new gas-powered new Dodge Charger. So, a little background. The Dodge Charger, the four-door sedan, and the Challenger that we loved and knew for many years, their last model year was 2024. For 25, a brand new model came out. It was called just the Charger, and it was fully electric. And it was hated, including by me. I reviewed one about a year ago, and I said a lot of nasty things about it. But I also said it had potential. I liked the look, liked the way it drove, and I thought they could improve it. And one of the improvements I suggested was a gas-powered engine returning to this car. And for 26, that's exactly what's happened. The new Charger now has a new gas-powered engine, not just a full electric model. The gas engine isn't a V8, but rather a twin-turbo straight six, a six-cylinder engine, the same one that they're using in the Ram RHO and various other new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep products. You see it here. There are two versions. This is the standard output model, which has 420 horsepower, a pretty healthy figure, does 0 to 60 in about 5 seconds. Or you can upgrade to the high output version. That one has 550 horsepower and does 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds. Both of these powertrains are mated to standard all-wheel drive. So the beloved rear-wheel drive chassis of this car, that is gone, at least for now. Now, the six-cylinder is right now the only gas powertrain offered in the new Charger. There's no V8, but you have to assume that a V8 is on the way. You got to imagine they're dreaming it up, and it's going to be coming back at some point. For now, the performance from these six-cylinder engines is pretty strong. And you can see under the hood, they proudly have Sixpack mounted on both sides of the engine cover, and the cover itself seems to have three sort of panels on each side, implying that it's a V6, when in fact it is a straight six, but it certainly looks better in this V configuration. Interestingly, the Sixpack branding you can also find on the hood on this panel, which is actually completely fake. It's not opened, it's not there for cooling, it's not necessary, but it does say Sixpack, and strangely enough, it is pointed towards the driver, towards the windshield, rather than out to the outside like you see on most badging. Kind of an interesting quirk. Now, I should point out that the electric version of this car is still available. You can still get an EV, but it's pricey. This model, the gas-powered standard output, starts around $52,000. If you upgrade to the high output, it's somewhere in the high $50,000 range starting. The electric model starts in sort of the mid $60,000 range, which is pretty expensive for a car that isn't really that desirable. But it is worth remembering that the electric version does offer up to a monstrous 670 horsepower, which is a real figure, sends it from 0 to 60 in the low low 3-second range. So if you're willing to go electric, spend a little bit more, you will be rewarded with some serious performance. Now, as far as exterior quirks and features, there are quite a few, but let's start with the overall design. This car still has a retro design, much like the Charger and Challenger models from before. It's just a different retro era. The two-door model, formerly called the Challenger, that design used to be based on the Challenger models from the early 1970s. Now you have this, the two-door, now called the Charger, which is based on the two-door Charger models from the late 1960s. That's the retro inspiration for this design. Honestly, I still think it looks pretty good. It doesn't quite have the aggression of the old car, but it's still a nice looking design and rooted in a very beloved car in Dodge's history. The drawback, though, is that car was huge, and creating a retro homage to that car also resulted in huge. This car is 206.6 inches long, which is almost 10 inches longer than the outgoing Challenger, which in itself was not a particularly tight, athletic little car. This thing is massive, bigger than a lot of full-size SUVs and even some pickup trucks. It is a huge vehicle, and you really feel that and see that when you're looking at it. It's especially big considering it's a coupe. This is a two-door car that's that size, really enormous. Now, Dodge says there is a four-door version that's coming. In fact, it's coming very soon. It might even be out by the time this video drops, but for now, it's a two-door, the new Charger. And there are quite a few more interesting exterior quirks. Let's start with badging. There is no Dodge badging anywhere on the outside of this car. Absolutely none. I cannot see where it says Dodge or shows a traditional Dodge badge anywhere at any panel or point on the outside of this car. But it is not without badging. I already showed you the Sixpack logo on the hood, which is kind of ridiculous. You also get this angry wheeled B logo. You can see here on the fender. You get that on both sides. I suppose that's like the Super B logo brought back to this car, another retro homage. You do have the word Charger printed on the car, but only once down here, imprinted into this black trim in the bottom and the back, basically unreadable. So you don't really have Dodge anywhere on this car, and you don't really have Charger. It's kind of an unusual approach. The logo that appears the most, in fact, is this one. You can see it here in the wheel center, this sort of odd triangle logo, which is called the Fratzog. Apparently, Dodge used this logo on some of their cars in the 1960s and 1970s. It was this logo they came up with, and they named the Fratzog back then, and it was intended to be kind of a futuristic logo for their futuristic new products, and a lot of the muscle cars used it too. They've brought it back here, and it appears all throughout the car. I showed you the wheel centers, but it also appears in the front, where it's actually kind of cool. It's sort of floating in place and lit up along with the front light bar, which gives it kind of an interesting flair. But I especially like it in back, where you can see it sort of floating in this horizontal panel in the middle of the rear light bar. That looks pretty cool back there. Even though it's a weird logo, people aren't going to know exactly what it is. It's still kind of an interesting placement of this sort of odd retro historical design. And on the subject of interesting exterior quirks, another one is the fact that this car is a hatchback. This big coupe, sort of the old retro look Dodge Challenger Charger two-door, is actually a hatchback. You press this button and the tailgate opens up, revealing a Dodge Charger hot hatch that you probably didn't know existed. And because it's a hatchback, it actually really gives you a lot more practicality than you might expect, and more than you'd get with the standard trunk. You can see it's a pretty decent sized cargo area back here, and of course you can fold down the rear seats for even more cargo space and get actually a fairly reasonably practical car out of this. Even though it's a giant two-door vehicle, it does have some good cargo space. Now, worth pointing out, there's not any extra room below the floor of the cargo area. You can lift up this panel and you can see there's a small area under there, but nothing huge where you could put any large items, just for really small stuff. Strangely enough, the button to close the tailgate is actually on the inside, which a lot of Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep models have. You push it and the tailgate automatically comes down, closing the door on your hot hatch Dodge Charger coupe. And since we're getting into the new Charger in the cargo area, let's get into the new Charger in the interior, where you climb in here and you instantly see that this interior is unapologetically Dodge Chrysler. I say that because, well, it's a very aggressive, very emotive design in here, with a lot of swoops and curves kind of all throughout the interior. And as you can see, there's also very distinctive and shouty mood lighting throughout the entire dashboard that really lights up the interior in your distinctive color, and in the dark at night it really reflects on the windshield and the side windows. It's not really necessarily the safest, most visible thing, but it adds to the cool atmosphere, which is what this car has always been about. You also have a very Dodge style shifter here, this old school shifter with a huge button on the bottom. You sort of grab it and push the button and pull it into place. Feels very retro, very 60s and 70s. And then there's the materials, which in this car range from high quality to very low quality. For low quality, you have some really cheap plastic. You can see the turn signal stock looks very rental car, and you have some of that plastic on the door panel as well, just not looking all that nice. But high quality, the entire seat center is Alcantara with kind of this cool futuristic pattern, as you can see, and they've even managed to put Alcantara in the dashboard, which isn't something you'd expect from Chrysler Dodge vehicles. Beyond that, you have some nice stitching, some leather, and even some carbon fiber all over the door panel, this carbon fiber trim, and in the center console, where the high quality carbon fiber is next to some nice leather in the shift boot, but also some cheap plastic. It's sort of a hodgepodge of different materials, but it totally fits the personality of this car. And of course, beyond the materials and the design, there are quite a few interesting quirks in here. Let's start with the climate controls, which are thankfully completely separate from the infotainment screen. So they have their own controls, but it's all on one single panel, and you just have to kind of tap the area that you want to activate. And yes, that means if you want to change the temperature, you have to tap, 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 tap repeatedly in order to get the temperature to your desired setting, which is kind of interesting. So the climate controls are separate, but they don't have separate buttons, so it's still sort of kind of like a screen in the sense that you have to really look and pay attention to what you're doing in order to tap the right spot in this button area. Now, with that said, I do love that this car has separated the most frequently used controls out of the screen. So you can see over here on the left, the heated steering wheel, heated and cooled seat, the volume knob, that stuff is all separate from the screen. You can adjust all those things in the screen, but you can also use these separate redundant controls, which is nice to see. Speaking of interesting buttons, how about here in the center control stack? If you look down at the bottom, you can see there's a button marked launch, which appears to show a car kind of squatting back and taking off like an old school drag strip start. That is, of course, launch control. And when you press that, it doesn't turn on instantly. Instead, it shows you in your gauge cluster screen a checklist of things that you need to do in order to activate launch control. So like you have to be in drive, the steering wheel has to be straight, etc. All that stuff has to happen for launch control to be activated. Kind of an interesting activation procedure. Another interesting quirk, you don't have traditional door handles in this car. Instead, you have buttons. You can see this button here is the door popper. You press that and it electronically opens up the door so you can get out. Now, in case the door popper fails, you do have a manual door handle down below. You can see down here, you can pull that and have a mechanical door release just in case the electronics aren't working properly. And another rather interesting control in here is accessing the hood and the trunk. So to access the trunk, the cargo area, that button is not within easy reach of the driver's area, like on the door panel or next to the steering wheel. Instead, it's on the ceiling, sort of hidden up here next to stuff you're rarely pushing, like your SOS button and your dome lights. It's up there, you push it twice, and the trunk opens up. Fine. The weird thing is that the button to open up the front, the hood, is not a latch in the footwell like in most cars. Instead, it's a little button next to the headlights. You push that, and that opens up the hood, and then you can get in there. Opening the hood in this car is easier and more convenient than opening the cargo area. Now, this is obviously a vestige of when this car was an electric vehicle, where opening up the hood should be easy because it has an extra storage compartment. But now it has a gas engine, so it's still easy to open the hood, but you never want to. But leave it to Chrysler to make it easier to show off your engine than access your cargo. Lovely. And on the subject of kind of questionable Chrysler quality decisions, how about the engine start-stop button, which is right here in the middle? It works just fine, pretty simple, but when you push it, and when it's dark out, you push it down and random letters light up as you push it down. Then you release it, and the whole button is illuminated again. You can see engine start stop, but you push it and like the NGIN illuminate, but kind of nothing else. It doesn't really give you the highest confidence and quality, especially since that's what happens when you start the engine. And speaking of not the best quality, the infotainment screen is unusually laggy for an infotainment screen in 2026. Actually kind of surprising. You cycle through the different menu items, and there really is a pretty significant delay in some of them in order to go between the screens. Not exactly sure how they've managed to mess that up in the modern era when basically every other infotainment screen is very responsive, but again, Chrysler Dodge products, that's kind of what you get. And that's not really what you're after. You want a stylish car with big speed, and that's what you get, along with some other stuff that just happens to provide infotainment. Now, I will say on this screen there are a couple of neat things in here. For instance, there's an app called Attitude Adjustment. You tap on that, and that is where you can adjust the color and the vibrancy of the interior mood lighting, like I mentioned before. Instead of just interior lighting, attitude adjustment, kind of cool. I also like the performance pages section of this screen, which a lot of Dodge and Chrysler models have had for a while now. Here you can see a long list of performance metrics from this car, like a timed 0 to 60, eighth mile, quarter mile, how much power you're using, various different gauges to show all sorts of temperatures and other indications. Pretty cool to see inside this infotainment screen. Even better than that, though, is the gauge cluster, which really is fantastic. There are several different kind of ways you can configure the gauge cluster. There's sort of a basic to give you the most information possible, but there are also arrangements where you have kind of a minimal look or a full screen map. I love how configurable this gauge cluster is. You can make it show exactly what it is you want to see at pretty much any given time, and it's actually really well done and really well thought out. Unlike some automakers which really limit your configurability in here, it's nice to see they haven't done that here. And finally, last thing to cover in this car is the back seats, which are probably not going to get a lot of use in this car, since if you really want to use the back seats a lot, you're probably going to go for the 4-door model. But despite that, there's actually a lot of great stuff in the back seat. For one, access is easy. You just fold the front seat forward and it automatically sort of power moves forward to allow for the largest possible access area to the back. Once you're back there, you can see a lot of good stuff. You have power ports, 2 individual USB-C ports for charging devices. You also have heated rear seats, which you almost never see in a coupe. That's a pretty nice luxury touch. There's also climate vents back there, so you're not just relying on the air coming out of the front climate vents to eventually reach you. You also have a dedicated storage compartment in back, which is nice to see, kind of on the side of the seats. And if you fold down the center armrest, you have cup holders, which is also nice. If you fold up the center armrest, you have a center seat. So 5-person seating capacity in this car, which is pretty good. And if you're sitting in the back, you look up and you have kind of a nice view out of this large glass roof panel. It doesn't open, it's not like a sunroof, but it is panoramic and kind of removes some of the claustrophobia that you normally get sitting in the back of the coupe. It also helps that the back seats are pretty roomy. As you can see, there's decent space back there. Makes sense considering the large overall size of this car, but it's nice to see they have used that to give rear seats some space. So realistically, if you wanted to use this as kind of a family car, you could. It'd be annoying to kind of always be going into the back, but there's surprisingly decent space and decent comfort and convenience features for those rear seat passengers. Now, beyond all of that, well, it's time to get it out on the road. I said this car, when I drove the electric version, would be radically improved with a gas engine. Let's find out if that's true. All right, driving the new Charger Sixpack. It's a ridiculous name, and it's kind of a ridiculous vehicle, but I have to say, I really like it. So I reviewed the electric version, which has got a lot of hate, and I gave it a lot of hate. But I also said that dynamically, it's exactly what I expect and what I like from a Dodge Charger, which is sort of this big, lumbering, but fast in a straight line, kind of crazy looking thing. And I also said that if it had a V8, I would be thrilled. I think it would actually turn it into a pretty good car. Well, they haven't yet given us a V8, although I suspect that's coming, but instead we have this turbo 6-cylinder, which is actually a really good engine. And enthusiasts complain about this too, because, oh, it's not quite a V8, it's not the same, but 420 horsepower in this version actually makes this car feel really fast. 0 to 60 in high 4s, low 5s, that's pretty good. Obviously, the high output version would be even faster, but I'm pretty impressed just with the way that this feels. I'm flooring it. This is a quick car, and it sounds good and it feels good. And I've driven this powertrain before in the Ram RHO, which has gotten similar complaints from people. Oh, it's only a 6-cylinder. Well, it is only a 6-cylinder, and that hits you when you think about, oh, V8s exist and it'd be nice. But this is a damn good 6-cylinder. It is very responsive. It is very powerful. It feels potent and capable and got a great power and torque band right in the mid-range. There is no turbo lag. There's no lag at all. This is a great engine. And you put, and again, this is the standard output. This isn't even the high performance one. And you put a great engine in a pretty good car, especially a Charger, a big coupe. That's what people want. It's actually pretty good. This feels like the Chrysler product that I know and love, which is to say it's got a lot of power, it runs in a straight line, and it's big and oversized, but it looks very aggressive and muscular. I liked the electric one, but thought it had deficiencies. But here we are in the gas one, which has solved the main deficiency, the EV powertrain. It's also less expensive. It still feels fast. It feels a lot of fun. I don't see a lot of drawbacks in this car anymore, especially once they come out with a 4-door. And if they can do a V8 with even more power, then you're off to the races. And I think we've basically got the Challenger and Charger back in our lives like before. And honestly, I loved how the old Challenger looked, and I think there will be people who will always be disappointed that they ditched that design. But it had been on the road for, 17 years or something. It was time to move on, and I think they've done a great job coming out with this one. I like the way this one looks too. I think it's a really cool looking car, and I'm really supportive of it, and I'm supportive of a gas powertrain, which is what they've done. In terms of the way it drives, also, it should be pointed out, I think this car is a lot better than the old Challenger. Obviously, I'm comparing it to the Challenger because it's a 2-door, even though the name is Charger. I think it's a lot better than the old Challenger. I feel like it feels like a more modern car. You have these modern screens in here. The interior is still not of amazingly high quality. That's the way Chrysler vehicles are. But it does seem like it's a more composed ride. It doesn't seem quite as skittish as before. It seems like it's been tamed. Obviously, the chassis has been modernized. That's no surprise. It's not the most comfortable car in the world, but it's fine. It's not excessively rough. It feels good to me. Just totally fine driving around. Frankly, I think it's a nice car. It drives well. It drives reasonably. It drives how you would expect a Dodge Challenger or Charger to drive. I don't know. I think this is a pretty good revival. I think that this car will always be dogged by the reputation of having come out as fully electric only and kind of this big misstep. But as this lineup fills out with gas powertrains, with the 4-door, potentially with a V8, this starts to become a pretty desirable car. And I will tell you, if I got the choice between an old 6-cylinder Challenger and this one, it wouldn't even be close. I would take this one in a heartbeat. I like the look just as much, if not better. The tech is better. It's faster. It's a much more composed, kind of modernized car. I actually truly think there is surprisingly a lot to like here. And I'm looking forward to this lineup kind of continuing to grow and bringing back even more of the magic that we've loved about the Challenger and Charger. And so that's the new 2026 Dodge Charger Sixpack. I know, it's not the same as the old one with the beloved design they had for years and the V8 and all those models we loved, the Hellcat, the wide body, etc. But this is a legitimately good car with this turbo straight six, and this lineup is only improving as they add the 4-door and likely a V8, probably more special models. I truly think this new Charger could be just as desirable as the old one. And now it's time to give the Sixpack a DougScore. And the DougScore is here, 58 out of 100, which puts the Charger Sixpack here against rivals. It doesn't do too well, but that makes sense. I like the Charger Sixpack, but I don't like it more than these cars, most of which are the top performing options from each of their brands. Now, I think the high output gas Charger would get a higher score, and a V8 version would do even better still. And despite my misgivings with this car's EV-only launch, I think they've done a pretty good job improving it in the time since.